Yeah, so we're going to talk about really why we dream and why it's so important for us to work with them, and how if you're not paying attention to your dreams, how you're missing out on a huge part of your life, especially your spiritual life.
Absolutely.
So let's just start off, Rob. I have a question for you. You studied neuroscience, you know the brain, you're the brainiac here. What happens in the brain? Like what really happens biologically when we're dreaming? Because a lot of people say that the brain is rearranging something and of what happens through the day. What do you think, or what would you say happens?
Yeah, just at the biological level, we know dreams are important. They carry out a lot of house maintenance kind of issues. They clean up the brain, essentially. They store memories that we accumulated during the day. They kind of put things in their place so that you can recall them later. Anything we learn during the day, for example, if you're a student and you're studying, it's been well documented. If you get a good night's sleep before the exam, you'll be able to remember and recall that information a lot better than if you don't dream. The dream seems to be kind of about keeping the brain healthy and kind of getting the trash out of the house.
So, I know that some people say they don't dream, or I've talked to people about that. And so just because we're talking about the biology, what I noticed is that my clients, when they would be on certain medications, or they use sleep, like Ambien or sleep medications, they would not dream, or they not remember their dreams as much as when they were off of it. And I don't know what's happening there. And then also, crazily enough, when I worked as a hypnotherapist, I helped a lot of people quit smoking. So they were on that drug that they give you to quit smoking, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but they said their dreams were out of control, like scary, scary, scary dreams. So I don't know what that does to the brain, but it like opened up maybe the deepest fears they had or something, and they were just like, I had to stop taking that. So those medications really do affect your brain, and then that affects your ability to process the dream.
Yeah, anytime you mess with your neurotransmitters through psychotropic medications or recreational drugs or anything like that, it's going to change your dreams because the brain is really even more active during REM sleep, which is dreaming, than during your waking life. It's kind of like in our waking life, where a lot of the activities we're doing, we're kind of going through them automatically. So we don't have to really process them a lot. They're repetitive events or things that we've done before. Whereas in dreams, the brain is experiencing something new. It's creating its own internal environment, like a 3D simulation, and it's putting you in the middle of the action most of the time.
And that's an important thing. One thing you taught me that was fascinating, because we always have these dreams where we're running, but why doesn't our body move, even though the brain is actually acting as if you are actually doing the activity, but the motors, there's something that turns off in the brain that turns off the motor reflexes in the physical body. So your brain can be thinking you're running and using the brain power of that simulated reality, but the physical body is shut down or in like a paralysis.
Yeah, it's in a paralyzed state, so you don't act out the dream. There are some disorders, though, that people have where that mechanism doesn't work, and they end up like wrecking their bedroom and throwing the furniture around.
I had a friend of mine who was she had a client once who would wake up in the middle of the night sleepwalking, and she would make a whole meal while she was sleep, and then she wouldn't even remember. The next day she would go into the kitchen and be like, what the hell? And she started gaining weight because she was eating in the middle of the night and making a full meal, and she didn't remember. So yeah, those are rare cases, though. Those aren't normal. Now, let's go to the more interesting part. I mean, science is interesting, the brain. but what about psychologically? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so I know Freud and Jung had a very, they both kind of came together through dreams. But a lot of people think when they have a dream about someone dying or something they're worried about, it happens, like boyfriend leaves or financial ruin or whatever. And they think that that's a premonition, or they take the dream literally and it's a sign or something, and they don't really understand what's really going on in the brain. And then another thing that Freud said is he thinks it's just like the brain working out its suppressed desires, or the part of the psyche, and that's all that's happening.
Yeah, in Freud and Jung, you kind of see the two branches that kind of blossom from those two ideas, or the two thinkers, into the different schools of dream interpretation and the meaning of dreams. So from Freud, he was a neurologist initially and trained as a neurologist, and his prediction was that psychology would evolve to really understand the brain as a neurological mechanism, and kind of place dreams within that context. And sure enough, you have schools nowadays that they see, dreams very much like we were talking about in biology, that they're functioning mainly as biological mechanisms to keep the brain healthy. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, that is going on. But with Jung, we see, the branching off into comparative religion, into what do these symbols that appear in the dreams mean, and ultimately into understanding a little bit of the collective unconscious as it relates to dreams. Have this kind of prophetic quality that some of the people that study religions and spiritual traditions around the world, they see that dreams played a big role in the development of those religions and the spiritual traditions, because people were receiving dreams from what they considered their divine spheres of existence,
or their ancestors were coming to them in dreams, and
the gods, the ancestors,
even they talk about the animal totems would come to the dream, like a eagle appeared in my dream and the eagle told me blah blah blah, and where it flew behind a lake, and that symbolizes this. And so Jung saw that it's more than just our personal life that we're working through in dreams, that there's actually a collective, which we're going to talk about next week on our soul sessions on the collective unconscious. So psychologically though, so we have these two camps. We're in the Jung camp. So the Jung camp is there's so much more going on than just our personal life. But from a personal level, let's start with there. Jung did he didn't discount that part.
Not at all.
What's the benefit of someone understanding or paying attention to their dreams, understanding their interpretation?
Yeah. So on the individual level, beyond the kind of all the spiritual traditions and the religious mythologies, on the individual level, from the Jungian perspective, the dream is taking you through a process of growth, of personal development. And he says, if you don't pay attention to that, your psyche's kind of dragging you along and creating these external events to try to wake you up to that process. Like, what should you be doing psychologically, emotionally, at this level in your life, or at this stage in your life?
It's like almost like pay attention.
Yeah.
Pay attention. There's something that you're missing here.
Yeah, that's right. And so if you do pay attention, you have an ally there. You have part of your psyche that he called the unconscious mind, or the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. They're guiding you. It's guiding you in that developmental growth throughout your life.
So again, to go back between Freud and Jung, Freud thought of it as like a computer that's just spitting out like repressed stuff, where Jung sees it and how we see the unconscious as alive. It's not like something to be reprogrammed. It's actually speaking to us, even on a personal level. There's the personal and the collective. It's an alive. It's an energy, psychic energy that's a part of us. That's just like our body has all these energies that's running everything. Psychologically, we have this other machine it's like a more energetic, I don't know how else to frame it, but it's a psychic energy that is giving us, and it's creative, and it's giving us help. And for me, I always felt that when I started really working with dreams since I met you, because I had always dreams, so I just didn't know what to do with them. I find that there's this deep, direct experience I have of that there's some other part of me that's bigger than me that's watching out for me.
Absolutely. If you look at any culture, any tradition, they have a rich culture of dreams. Of at least somebody in the tribe understood dreams and was able to interpret them, or to give people at least some guidance into what those messages meant. And some periods of time where people were, let's say, a little bit more open about the unconscious mind. They might have called it something different, of course. They called it the gods, or the realm of the gods, or the magic. But they were in tune to what the dreams are talking about. And they used them very proficiently to live kind of a more balanced life. Because ultimately, that's what Jung says, is that what happens to us at the conscious level needs to be balanced out by what's going on in the unconscious. The unconscious serves as a balancing, as a counterpoint, a balance to help us live a more complete life.
So an example of that would be if you are like on a conscious level trying to hold it all together, and you're, at work, and you're just trying, or even a mother or a parent, you're trying to like keep the chaos from ensuing, not allowing yourself to feel certain things, anger or frustration. You just kind of like are pushing it aside on a conscious level. You would tend to have dreams where you're running or angry or something that's counter to your own personality, to balance out basically the shadow that you're pushing away. And so it's a way for that part of your shadow, basically, that you're not aware of, to integrate. And it's like an invitation. And so you have the conscious and unconscious, and then the dream is kind of like it's a way for you to merge the two. Like it's like a meeting place between. It's like you're half awake and half asleep in that. And if you look at the brain and how it processes when you're in REM, that REM state, you are in that kind of almost awake, but you're not. And that's really, it's like you're getting that glimpse of that. And when I was a hypnotherapist, that's kind of what we did. We put people in an active state of visualization where the merging, you start to see bleeding, the conscious and unconscious. But I think in dreams, it's deeper because it's like a part of your mind is shut off, that logical mind. So you can really start to explore a deeper part of it's unchained in a way. It's unregulated by that executive functioning of that logical brain. And you're kind of able to explore in a way, because it has to be partly conscious because we remember them when we wake up. So there has to be a conscious element interacting with the dream.
Yeah, it is very much, let's say, the individuation process, or the process of growing beyond your, let's say, the socialization part. We all get socialized by our culture, but beyond that, right? There has to be a creative element in the individual that allows you to become an individual apart from the group. Right. So Jung says the herd mentality is like the group. If you live only at that level, you're missing out on the rest of it, the deeper part of it. And that deeper part comes from being in touch with that individual connection that you have to your unconscious mind, because that gives you clues as to what is your purpose here
Mm.
on earth? What are you doing here in your individual life right now? Instead of just kind of going by what the society tells you, you know, here's your role and here's your job and just do it. That the individual connection with dreams or through dreams gives you that deeper message of, no, you're here to do something special and here's what you're meant to be doing.
So Jung's quote, he who looks outside dreams and he who looks inside awakens. And so the dream is the doorway to your own awakening. And so we need to figure out how to do that. Now, the last question of this podcast is really, we talked about the biological, the neurological brain processing of dreams. We talked about the psychological part, but there is really, I mean, we're kind of touching on this because the psychological and spiritual kind of blend together. If you're a Jungian, it's a spiritual psychology. So from a spiritual perspective, what a dream, why do we dream? Why do you think the wise universal, power or whatever we want to call it, the self created this mechanism for dreaming? What do you think the purpose of it is?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we know, for example, that we need to dream. And first of all, we need to sleep. And almost every animal on the planet sleeps in one form or another. And so it's deeply ingrained in the creation, right? It's not only human beings, it's like part of the whole system. We need to kind of go into that inner space. And we do it every night. Every 24 hours, we spend a pretty good chunk of time, 7 or 8 hours sleeping. And then within that, then we experience these things called dreams. At the spiritual level, we know that the shamanistic traditions, the kind of the spirit guides, the connection with medicinal plants and power plants, hallucinogenic plants, came through dreams. From the ordinary point of view, you would think, well, people learn to use medicinal plants simply by trial and error. But that's not actually how it happens. People that have studied traditional tribes, what they say is that, no, the plant came to me in a dream and it told me, try me this way or prepare me this way, and I will guide you in that spiritual process. So it's a very different way of seeing history, that it's not just this trial and error that we're going through, that there's a living kind of a psyche going on
beyond our personal, like individual human experience. So
right.
Even like Paul McCartney, he that song Let It Be, it says Mother Mary came to me speaking words of wisdom. He had a dream about his mother, who was named Mary, and she told him to let it be because he was struggling with the Beatles breaking up. And so songs come through dreams. I think there's a lot of artists that say they had a dream about a painting and then they painted it. And so, I mean, this is why we call ourselves the creative mind, because it is this, it's easy to just replicate and repeat and learn basically how to function in the world. But there's this other element of the human spirit that's unlimited, that brings new ideas, that inspiration. This is how we move humanity forward. So the dream world can actually give us that wisdom to change the world. And maybe it's a solution that to bring world peace or in your life that you haven't thought of before, that no one else on the planet can tell you, how to do something. But then the dream, it's like your inner wisdom speaking to you.
Yeah. So essentially, we would have to rewrite history to see it from this other perspective. That it's not only people kind of making conscious decisions about what they're going to do in their life. If you see the important role that dreams played throughout history, you see that dreams intervened in wars,
Mm.
what kings and generals were going to do in battles. It intervened in religious ideas. You know, what St. Paul was persecuting Christians. He had a vision, which is essentially like a waking dream that woke him up to something different. And
isn't Joseph the Technicolor dream coat?
Yeah, he was a dream interpreter that you know,
famous
changed history.
Yeah.
The Egyptian history through his dream interpretations. But at the individual level, a big dream can change our life, right? It can give us some insight that we had never thought of before consciously, and it comes through that dream in the night.
I think for me, I think the number one thing it gives for me spiritually is the direct experience of my own divine nature, a direct experience. So for me, when I have these, I'm struggling with something, or I want, need to, know which way to go in a certain thing, like I'm battling with, should I do this or that? I would have a dream, and it would almost tell me, like, you see, I tell you my dreams all the time. You're like, they're so obvious. Like, what is in the way of me getting what I want? Or, even simple things with our business or our life. I've even had dreams about, before I met you, like they gave me clues as to what I needed to do. And I think you had a dream too. I came to you in a dream. And, but for me, it's understanding that there's just something alive in me that is not just me. And so it's this other me, this other wise and an entity or wisdom that's in me that I'm connected to. And just having that experience and understanding dreams helps me feel more solid, instead of, even though the world is, changing. It's like you can read spiritual knowledge, you can intellectually understand, how the mind works and consciousness, and understand them all intellectually. But the dream, understanding it, gives you that direct experience. Because when you're in the dream, it's like, oh, like, especially when you start lucid dreaming, you're really seeing this, wow, what is life about? What is my perception? You start to really get a deeper sense of the power that you have. So that for me is the dream's benefit itself, not just helping me make decisions, but just having that direct experience of who I beyond the personal.
Absolutely. I mean, it works at all levels. It works on the everyday level of solving problems at work, giving you insight about relationships, as well as the deeper elements of, what are the spiritual questions? What is the meaning of your life? What is your purpose? And all that. Dreams can address those things, because what they do is they match your conscious mind. What are you up to in the waking world?
I feel like someone's like, I have a secret, like, spy listening to everything I say and everything I think. And then it's in the dream, it's like throwing it back at me. Like, it's like my secret ally in a way. That's sort of like, it's at the witness mind that's always paying attention. And you don't feel alone. You don't feel this, like you're this like little tiny, like little ego floating around in the world and trying to find security. You feel like you're connected to something so much bigger.
Well, we know from the yoga traditions, the Vedic traditions, that dreams were seen as an important element to understand consciousness. If you understand the nature of dreams, you're that much closer to understanding the fundamental nature of consciousness. What is your awareness? How does it arise in your mind? And how does your mind work from that? And dreams give you great insight into that, because in essence, what it's saying is that this reality, this external waking reality, is very much dreamlike, where our mind is giving order to it and creating it in its meaningful ways. It's finding the patterns. It's looking at what do I pay attention to, and why do I pay attention to that? And it creates for us this coherent sense of our reality and ourselves. And in the dream, we see kind of we get a glimpse of the backstage, what's going on underneath that in the unconscious mind.
So when we think about, some people will say, well, how do I increase my dream recall? One thing I would do is keep a pen and paper by your bed. And every night before you go to sleep, set the intention that you're going to remember your dreams. Very simple. I'm going to remember my dream, or ask your dream a question. I would like to know blah, what I would need to know. And then the next morning, if you don't get an answer, you just write down, I had a good night's sleep, or I'm a little tired today, or just write something down. And it starts that loop of you inviting the dream, and then you're saying, I'm paying attention. And it seems odd, but something happens, and the mind starts to producing dreams. And usually it just takes a few days of doing this, and you'll start to remember. It's important to get a full night's sleep. Like, don't stay up too late. If you go to bed early. I always find too that if you set your alarm an hour before you're supposed to wake up, and then go back to sleep, you'll remember that dream, that last, if you can do that. If some people can't fall asleep, they're like, oh, I can't fall back asleep after that. But you could try that. And for me, the best dream time is right before I wake up, because I remember it right away. So that would be a trick. And then afterwards, you don't really need, it's great to have a dream. You don't want to use a dream interpretation dictionary, right? You could
I've yet to find a good one.
Yeah.
So maybe we can write one.
That's true. You could look up what symbols mean, but really, truly, it's a very individualized experience of what that symbol means to you, depending on where you're at and what the context of the dream is. So it's really complex. So if you don't have a coach, a Jungian coach, to help you with interpreting your dreams, you could just simply do this. Read your dream out loud. As you write it down, read it out loud. And just by you reading it out loud, just like you're bringing the dream in the waking life, something happens psychically. Jung recommended this. If you just do that, you will start to see a shift. And as far as dream interpretation, one of the things is, don't take it literally. Don't take your dreams literally. Every once in a while, depending on how your intuitive skills are, you may have precognitive dreams, but not all dreams are precognitive. And so I think a lot of people say, oh, this happened, and my parent got in an accident. I'm really worried now about my parent getting in an accident. And it's like, no, it's something about the father archetype, and the accident could be a collision of two ideas. It's not as literal as we think it is.
Yeah, that's always the temptation, is to just interpret the dream literally, but that's the wrong approach. It is symbolic language that the unconscious speaks. I see it as like the original language that we developed all our languages from that original language of symbolism.
And so definitely try that. Another thing that dreams can do is it gives you guidance. It tells you where you are in your own individuation process, basically where you're kind of holding yourself back. And I know that a lot of people think, well, if there's something external that's stopping me from getting what I want, but it's all psychological. It's all something in you that's, it's basically, we're conditioned to create the same pattern we've always have, that the ego set up. It's kind of like molded us. And to break that, we have to figure out why that pattern's in place and step outside of that pattern, that identity, in order to have the things that we never had before. We have to become someone new. And so the dream gives us clues as to what aspects of our personality and psyche are kind of inhibiting that process. So maybe we're not expressing ourselves. Maybe we feel trapped. Maybe there's a path and we keep getting lost. Very common dream is like, I keep looking for something, but I never find it. And it's like that kind of, it's a sign that you are asking the question, but you're not connecting. So how do we, your psyche's like hungry for knowledge or hungry for change.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.